go, let's go, let's go.
Pause. We joined a cult. It's run by this guy.
I am the Messiah.
And they're always up to some bullshit. In this video, we're going to take you through everything we know about the Raelians, which is a lot, and how we became literal members. Not joking. For this story, we're going to start from the very beginning.
Here's the situation. It's the 50s, and people are seeing UFOs everywhere. When a guy named George Adamski not only sees one, but gets taken inside of it. And Adamski's an interesting choice for the aliens. He's already a spiritually inclined guy. He believes in something called theosophy, which alleges that all of the world religions are just different ways of talking about the same thing. The big prophets, Jesus, Buddha, Confucius, exist in a lineage of ancient masters, spiritual adepts who understand the secret doctrine of the absolute, which means God. It turns out, according to Adamski, the aliens are ancient masters too. And the reason there's so many flying saucers around is because they want to teach us things. Now, theosophists are popular, or at least fairly respected, in Western spiritual communities. They sound smart and probably read a bunch of books. And when Philip Seymour Hoffman plays one, he looks respectable and well-read, and only sometimes drinks paint thinner. So Adamski's model becomes the blueprint for the era's UFO cults. You know, cults. One guy, money goes up to him, he predicts the end of the world. They all believe that their guy is the chosen of these aliens, these spiritual guides on the path to higher consciousness. And all of this is alienating to serious alien researchers. A little too new wave for their tastes. When Chariot of the Gods came out in '68, I think they really came into their own. Chariot of the Gods. In the book, there's no spirituality, there's no magic. Aliens aren't higher beings, they're just often mistaken for them. All of this sets the scene for one very extraordinary night.
December 13th, 1973 was a foggy day in the south of France, when a man named Claude Verihon ascended the crest of an extinct volcano. Claude was only 27, but he had already been a pop singer, a race car driver, and the editor of a soon-to-be defunct sports magazine. Perhaps he hoped to find a new direction here. Just then, descending from the sky was a red flashing light. A red flashing light attached to a flying saucer. The exact platonic ideal of a flying saucer. Out came a stairway, and on it the... French Wizard of Oz? No! An alien! Sacre bleu! This alien, Claude would learn, was a member of the Elohim, a Hebrew word misinterpreted as meaning God.
Silly. What they thought was God was aliens.
The truth was, these aliens are human beings from another planet with technology 25,000 years more advanced than ours, and they created us.
In fact, someone named Yahweh terraformed the Earth to be suitable for their genetic experiments. So they ended up actually
Aliens
breeding
back
with
on
that
the
other
other
planet
planet
who were called
the
this
Satan
human named Noah,
flew into
got
outer space
all
and
of
waited
the
there
people
until
onto the ship. The Earth got Tower of Babel was not actually a tower; it was actually a rocket ship. Sodom and Gomorrah were two
Science technology,
were the last two places
so
where there were any
they
people
just
who had
nuked
those two places. This is all in the Bible in one form or another.
With the bombing of Hiroshima, we've entered the age of the apocalypse. Humanity is in for an intense transformation, at the end of which the Elohim will return. The alien tells Claude that he will be their messenger, henceforth and forever to be known as Rael. Rael, go forth, spread the word and build an embassy to welcome us. Rael's a diligent messenger and a hard worker. He appears on talk shows, gives lectures, and founds the movement for the welcoming of the Elohim, creators of humanity.
Which, when you put it all in French or something, abbreviates to Matic. Madich? Madesh?
Other diligent hard workers join the movement. They want to spread the message, build the embassy, and collaborate with other ufological organizations that may also have encountered the Elohim.
Rael doesn't like this. It was kind of supposed to just be an us thing, you know? The executive staff doesn't like that he doesn't like this, Rael fires them, they conspire against him. All this disagreement proved to Rael that they did not respect the Elohim's desire for geniocracy, ruled by geniuses. And the Elohim chose me as their messenger. I'm the genius. What more proof do you need?
October 7th, 1975. Rael's stargazing. Suddenly, a huge ball of fire appears behind the bushes. Rael approaches, fearless, and there's that alien again. They tell Rael to climb aboard their spaceship. Presumably, they're going somewhere special. Sacre bleu indeed. They fly back to the planet of the Elohim, where some special guests are waiting. They sit at a table, perhaps 40 seats full, and then the Aloha starts pointing. He's like, that's Muhammad, that's Buddha, that's Elijah, oh, and that's Jesus. Everyone, Rael is going to be the newest and the last in this line of prophets. But in Rael's account, we don't spend a lot of time there. Not much at all. We do, however, have 3 pages on exactly what happened right after. A cloning machine shows him holograms of 6 sensual, alluring women and asks him which he prefers. One of which he describes as Asian, another he describes as Chinese. Rael says, "They all please me," and the machine was set in motion and I understood what was about to happen. I don't think I have to tell you what Rael does with these 6 newborn women. So when Rael returns to Earth, his position's changed a little bit. He's what we might call a heavy hitter now, a big heifer. He's not just a messenger, he's not even just one in a continuum of prophets. He's the last prophet. Okay, Manish, you hear that? We're a religion now. Yeah, we're atheists. Doesn't mean we can't be a religion. Scientific organization, whatever the fuck you are, it's done. It's dissolved. It's over. Welcome to the international Raelian movement. Eat my shit. Also, my dad's Yahweh, so I'm literally Jesus's fucking brother. Eat my shit, bitch. Yeah, so something interesting there. They're now an atheistic religion. It's kind of contradictory. Basically, they've recreated Christianity, but with God as a guy that you can and should have sex with. In fact, you will have sex with him as soon as they return to the earth and raise you from the dead by using their cloning machine on your preserved forehead bone. But that's all high-level stuff. In the here and today, what does this collection of spiritualists, weirdos, and sexually active young people without a place in traditional religion get up to?
In the early days, it's essentially a social club. Rael establishes a priesthood, sure, and a set of doctrine. They rent meeting halls and meditate in the woods, but they're all just hanging out. It's a good time, many members drift in and out, nothing too serious. It's also a swingers club. Yes to pleasure, no to procreation. That's their slogan. UFO cults generally experiment with sexuality, but Raelians had an almost contemporary understanding of individual and sexual freedom. They practice poly, but they're not really pushy about it. You could be straight, the vast majority are straight monogamous couples.
But it's like, you could do better. Be a little bit bi, or at least have bisexual thoughts. It's the same rules as living in Bushwick.
It's a hippie commune by people who love The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Nothing professional. You can come to some meetings, you can come to the yearly retreats, treat it like a summer camp.
Then they buy a campground, and Rael even names it Eden. Nice.
They send missionaries to Japan, Quebec, and Africa. And I'll let you know right away, that's foreshadowing for you hogs in the audience. They spend a lot of time in cuddle puddles practicing free love. You can bring your girlfriend, you can bring your boyfriend, you can bring them both if you want. It's mostly vibes, but then in 1984, some weird stuff happens with Rael behind the scenes. It's a little unclear. He goes missing for a year, and his wife divorces him? He does have access to women that, worship him. It's not a surprise that their relationship collapsed. He was cheating on her, a lot. At the same time, Rael starts getting serious about this embassy. He starts talking more about collecting tithing from members. Not everyone likes this, but they can just not pay if they want, and it's fine. They can keep lying around and having sex.
Everyone's sucking and fucking, and you'll have tourists come in, and they'll do the sucking and fucking, and it's a whole sucking and fucking situation.
I've learned a lot about the Raelians, and some of their kind of unique practices have been pretty interesting to me. So I think I'm going to try to do some kind of like interview or something with one of the current modern day Raelians, try to see what's going on with the movement. If I could get invited to a meeting or something, that would be perfect, but we'll see. So I've signed up for the emailing list. Hopefully they get back to me and I'll be able to talk to somebody.
When you hear all this, the first question you have is probably, are they Bill Cosby fans? Are they Drake fans? Let's get into it. Let's step into the jacuzzi. Raelians, sexually progressive and open. That applies to their parenting philosophies too. They want children to develop healthy relationships with sex, so they promote childhood masturbation. They don't want sex to be a shameful thing. Which, if you think about it, it's good not to make sex a shame-laden thing. Okay, I get it. The question is this. When these kids show up to a Raelian event, what happens to them? Well, we actually know a lot about Raelian events from this time. Raelians were happy to be studied by journalists and academics alike. Susan J. Palmer, an affiliate professor at Concordia University specializing in new religious movements, wrote about them extensively in the 90s. Without her book, Aliens Adored, this video wouldn't be possible. So we know children weren't commonly taken to Eden or to Raelian events. But these things still happen. And it was the 70s, underage people walk into things, even if underage in France is literally 14. The difference between a good and a bad organization is what they do after. Do they sweep it under the rug? Do they move the offender to a different parish? Do they find the offender more kids? Or do they denounce the individual and remove them from the organization? In the rare cases that a Raelian is convicted of child sex crimes, the organization denounces the individual and takes steps to distance itself from that person. Sometimes they even overcompensate a bit, like when they launched the multinational No Pedo campaign. But it's against the Catholic Church, so when they're right, they're right. And they were also saying this about like a decade before anyone else was saying this about the Catholic Church. Raelians are particularly on guard about being PDF downloaders because they're constantly accused of being PDF downloaders. They make their members sign pacts not to engage in sexual acts with or in front of minors. Overall, Raelian attitudes on sex seem pretty healthy to me. You can call it a sex cult, but at least it's not a criminal sex cult.
Raelians have always been anti-Catholic. Nice.
It's part of their appeal for many of their followers. Like with the No Pedo campaign, Raelians spend a lot of time trolling the church. Operation Condom was a famous stunt where a Raelian trans woman drove around Catholic high schools in Quebec handing out condoms. Generally, their politics are pretty sensible. They're outspoken pacifists, they're anti-imperialist, and anti-nuclear proliferation. Admittedly, they're far to the left of the Democrats. Their members openly dream of the end of capitalism in a world without nations or money. Here they explain their position in a podcast. Yes, they have a podcast.
It's money that's the controlling factor. So for me, it's get rid of money. Get rid of the need for money, because that benefits only a very few people. The need and wish and will to keep people subjugated in order to make them earn money and pay interest on money that doesn't really exist. It's a philosophy of an attainable and sustainable paradise for all of us on Earth. I think it will require some sort of revolution to change those things.
They cloak it with the term paradism, but it's essentially communism. At the same time, their pro-sex positions, like we've already mentioned, are remarkably progressive, especially in France in the 1970s and 80s. They reject marriage as an anti-woman institution of control, openly accept and encourage queer and trans people, and sometimes even advocate for polyamory. They were remarkably accepting of sex workers, of whom many joined the organization. According to Dr. Palmer, who interviewed one Raelian male stripper, he could look forward to attending the local chapter of the Raelians and tune in to a group of like-minded, sociable, and sexy friends. Rael's heavy emphasis on avoiding drugs had helped many strippers he knew beat their cocaine and heroin addiction. They were delighted to find a religion that accepted and even celebrated their sexual differences.
The choice is pretty simple for these people. You can either join a non-denominational Protestant church and wear turtlenecks to cover your tattoos and give testimony about your dejected, wayward wanderings, or you can lie naked on a bed while a circle of strangers tells you which part of your body they like the most. The best example of the Raelians just being right was their community in Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso acts as a sort of proving ground for their philosophy. It's a community exclusively occupied by Raelians native to Burkina Faso. It's a hippie commune in Africa, which is mind-boggling to us because, didn't hippies get all their shit from Africa? So they send the philosophy back to Africa, and the Africans are just like, well, yeah, we told you that.
It's a lot of the same sexual exploration stuff that Eden had. They have bracelets denoting how open you are, what kinds of people you're open with, which Burkina Faso is a primarily Muslim country, not the most sexually open place. In fact, a common practice there is female genital mutilation. That's the removal of a woman's clitoris, often violently and done without an aesthetic. 100 million women in Africa, and between 56 and 76% of women in Burkina Faso were subject to this. Not only does it mean the permanent inability to orgasm for many women, but chronic pain in the genital area for the rest of your life. When Rael hears about this, he focuses mostly on the orgasming part. He learns reconstructive clitoral surgery is possible, and he gets Raelians to start raising money to build a clinic in Burkina Faso. Ingenious methods like the clip box.
Oh, babe, that's fantastic. Oh, yeah. Hey, shall we give money to the clip box for my orgasm?
Sounds a good idea.
I think so. Everybody deserves some pleasure.
They found Clitoraid, yeah, that's the name, in 2014, but the government shuts it down after only a few procedures. It's not the first or the last time that Rael gets in trouble with the government. Stay tuned. It's about to get crazy.
In 1992, Rael appears on a truly insane talk show. He sits down for what he believes is going to be a normal interview about himself and his flowers at Eden, when the host invites out a surprise guest. This man, John Paraga, is shown as a concerned father and heartbroken husband. Neither the host of this show nor the Netflix documentary on this topic acknowledge who this man is. Less than 1 year before the interview, Paraga tried to assassinate Rael. Paraga used to smuggle weed and cars between France and Algeria. He was a Raelian, and when he went to jail in Algeria, Raelians raised bail and legal funds to have him transferred to a more comfortable jail in France. And when he's released in 1992, he learns that his wife is cohabitating with a Raelian guide. And Paraga's incensed. He assaults the guide at a conference. Around the same time, his wife and kids go to a yearly seminar. Because they're brainwashed, Paraga thinks. He sends death threats to Rael and shows up with a gun. And now, a few months later, he sits down across from the same man that he tried to kill, saying his movement is full of Drake fans, kitty lovers, and PDF downloaders. Oh, what the fuck? Everyone in France says. These guys are sick. We can't have them around. The government passes new anti-sect laws, and in protest, Raelians wear yellow stars on their arms. You know, like the Holocaust. But it doesn't really help because France is hostile to them now. It also doesn't help that Paraga starts an anti-Raelian organization called Action Plus. and he will stop at nothing to defeat the Raelians. If Action Plus doesn't have the money, he will start a prostitution ring to pay for it. Oh. What? All the Raelians in France, their friends stop talking to him, they get divorced, they get fired from their jobs.
So in 1995, Rael flees the country.
Turns out there's a lot of Raelian fundamentalists in Quebec. Try as we might, we could not figure out what Raelian fundamentalist means. We just assumed it looks like this.
They get a new compound and lease a meeting hall from a Jehovah's Witness, which is the funniest possible landlord for a group of Raelians. They could not disagree on more. When this landlord finds out who they are, he tries to cancel their lease, but buddy, this isn't Europe. That's religious discrimination. The Raelians sue him, and they win.
Journalists interview the neighbors, and the consensus is, I don't know, kind of weird, but it's whatever. They try to recreate Eden in Quebec, but it isn't quite the same. The tone is a bit more serious now. The Raelians were persecuted out of a whole country. They have to lock in a little bit.
Focus up. The Elohim are coming back in 2025. Wait, now Rael is saying 2035. Still, they ramp up donations for the embassy. They make more merch for members to buy, and they make it almost mandatory.
At the same time, the executive structure starts to formalize. Whereas in Eden, all the members, often including Rael, would gather in a large room and talk openly about the challenges facing the group, in Quebec the leadership starts to retract from the people. Decisions made by Rael and his executive staff are passed down as doctrine.
This swingers club transforms into an actual organization, one with a serious chip on its shoulder and an ache for legitimacy.
The executive team obsesses over the organization's public-facing image. There's a way of viewing everything that happens in this period as a bid for media attention. Rael starts driving race cars again. They open a provocative UFO museum. They start driving a condomobile around Catholic high schools. They're doing evolution debates, anti-sect law protests, yes to masturbation campaigns, Raelians in Playboy.
They were trying to be sensational with these antics, but that doesn't mean that they were being callous. The executive team was careful to shave off the more polarizing aspects of Raelianism. When they take interviews, they de-emphasize the free love aspects of the organization. Now, even when Rael creates a harem, it gets professionalized. We'll get to that later. God, for a PR machine, I can't find anybody to talk to. I've been sending email after email and nobody's fucking responding. I got desperate and just started adding people whose name is Rael or Raelian on Facebook. And so far I've found quite a few people who seem to be part of the movement, but now my Facebook feed is fucked. And apparently all my family is going to think that I'm a cult member now, but whatever. Hopefully some of them respond to me and maybe I'll be able to get in touch with somebody local. So, we'll see.
The year is 1997, and Raelians are still afraid they're going to die. Remember, Raelianism is a religion, but it's also science, so it has to square away the traditional promises of religion with something scientific. And despite all their antics, at this point, Raelianism was still a niche French cult. Enter Dolly the sheep.
Her name is Dolly.
Dolly is the name of the first mammal, yes, a sheep, ever to be born as the result of cloning.
Bingo. Before this point, Rael had told his followers that they'd have to preserve their forehead bone when they die so that the Elohim can resurrect them in a clone body sometime in the future. But now, cloning is just around the corner. And it helps that cloning has the right enemies. That same year, the Pope issues a papal bull against any kind of cloning. Now Rael gets to say, the Pope's eternal life is bogus, unscientific. Look what we can do. Thus, Clonaid was born. Clonaid was going to clone a human being. Non-Raelians perk up. They volunteer for test trials, aggrieved parents want their babies back. And honestly, it looks promising. Clonaid has resources rarely seen in science. See, to make clones, scientists need human egg cells, a lot of them. And what scientists typically don't have is tens of thousands of fertile women. Raelians love the attention. At the head of Clonade is a woman named Bridget Bosselier. She has a doctorate in chemistry, not biology, but she has one in chemistry. She's been a Raelian since her 20s, from back in Movement's Eden days, and she roughed it through their tough times too. And for being a Raelian, she lost her job, and she lost custody of her kids. About her, Rael has to say, she does her best to look beautiful, but she's not so young anymore. But she does her best. So she takes the position, moves to the USA, and announces the first of their mega hot surrogate mothers, straight from the elite order of the Rails Angels. We'll get to it. Journalists want to know, who are these people? Congress also wants to know, why should we let them do that? So they ask Dr. Basilier to come down. She says she won't come without Rael. She answers a bunch of questions about Clonade. Rael tells a bunch about the Elohim. And all in all, it goes, bad. Congress bans cloning. Dude, which sucks. Because the next year they did it. They cloned a baby girl. Fuck. And Rael even had a great name for her. Eve. And yeah, this was illegal. The government doesn't like that they did that. Specifically the FBI and FDA. They investigate Clonade, and new details come to light. The organization is a mess. Researchers are walking out and denouncing Rael. Its vice president reports that Clonade is not incorporated anywhere, has no board of directors, and he has next to no knowledge of its operations. And her parent company, Valiant Ventures, is just a mailbox in Bermuda. We don't know if they did attempt human cloning. We don't know if they didn't. They had a lab. Well, they had a community center in New York. When the FDA raided it, they only found cow embryos. Journalists reported that this lab was filthy, but the community center custodian disagreed. He thought he did a good job. So, government breathing down their necks, investigative journalists kicking up a media frenzy, all of them persecuting the Raelians for investigating one of their fundamental beliefs. The sect has to flee Quebec for another country. So Rael says, let's skip town, let's go Japan. And all of this, if you're a normal tithe-paying member of the Raelians who has a little bit of rationality, you might be thinking, what the fuck? What the fuck is going on? What happened to the embassy? Do you remember the embassy? Am I the only one still thinking about the embassy? And at some point, Rael undergoes a phenomenon known among male cult leaders as going mommy mode. Ambitious male counterparts who might challenge the leader are replaced by what Palmer describes as protective, nurturing, unthreatening, ornamental young women. Rael replaces all of his male sycophants with hot female sycophants, and right before the Clonade fiasco, creates the Order of Rael's Angels. Yes, we're finally talking about it. The Order of Rael's Angels is essentially just a group of elite, hot women, because Rael says the Elohim like to have beautiful women around. And if you're feeling skeptical, then this man might be your champion. Known as Eric when he was a Raelian, he now goes by X-Rael. Changed his name to X-Rael because of how strongly he felt about this. Specifically, how strongly he felt that he couldn't be one of Rael's angels. Just because he was a man. Which, let's pause here. The aliens would be bisexual. It stands to reason that aliens who believe sex is for pleasure would be bisexual. I mean, check the scripture. So it's like, why are all the angels women? Why would it only be women? Why would women be... Rael, why is it only women? In fact, Rael, why aren't you bisexual? Because this is what you're saying, but what it looks like you're making is a harem. Are we in an isekai? And if the argument is that women are closer to the Elohim because the Elohim are more feminine, then why don't you modify your gender expression? Rael, you should be trans and you should be bi. Be bi and trans. Rael, be bi and trans. Rael, you can replace these things. You can change.
All right.
If you're a guy like X-Rail, you're going to these meetings where they now require that you pay for uniforms, and you might be sitting in a seminar one day looking around because you've refused to buy an outfit, and you start thinking, and this is an actual quote,
I've been at this seminar for 7 days. This is the first time I don't have a hard-on. I'm traumatized.
at some point, Rael lost the thread. What is going on?
He's doing Kim Jong-un type stunts, talking like a cult leader, acting like a cult leader. Well, to some people, it looks like Rael never had the threat. Rael's ex-wife reportedly hadn't even heard of his encounter until after his first book came out. 2 of his initial followers quit the movement after his second encounter because his meeting with the prophets was similar to a scene in a comic book he had seen at their house.
Assisté de tous les chefs religieux, de tous les chefs de toutes les religions. Et ça, c'est quelque chose qu'il a découvert chez nous, dans un hebdomadaire qui s'appelait le Fluide glacial, où il y avait toute l'histoire qu'il raconte. Mais sur le banquet des prophètes, il l'a découvert chez nous.
Or you might have said to Rael early on, I don't think we should use this logo. I know both symbols stand for peace, but they have a pretty profound linkage recently. And if you as a viewer are looking at this and are thinking, that's a bad idea, you've probably thought it before. Because this is what got Kanye banned from Twitter. And it's not like Rael didn't know. Like 5 Jewish organizations told him to stop using it. It's one of the reasons he couldn't build an embassy in Israel. He even purposefully changed the logo in the 1990s and then changed it back. Also, in general, Rael's a sex pest.
There's all this stuff with Rael's angels, which he knows are objectionable because they're extensively media coached not to look like his personal sex slaves. When Susan J. Palmer asked different angels what they meant when they said the order existed to recruit women and, quote, make Rael comfortable, a common response was, verbatim, I would make him comfortable by bringing him a glass of pure, clean water. At some point, one of Palmer's students pulls her aside to ask, why would Rael need so many women to do that? One of Palmer's students witnessed the angels dancing at Rael's 54th birthday celebration. She described it as the sexiest dance she'd ever seen. Scarves, thongs, and miniature bras, gyrating bums, grinding hips, like strippers in a strip club. At the end, they collapse on the floor and pretend to have a lesbian orgy. Suddenly, Rael stood up and made a beeline for the stage. He tore past me. Actually, I was in his way and he shoved me rudely, so I fell in a heap. He leapt up onto the stage and dived into the middle of the orgy and pretended to join in, and everyone was screaming with laughter and clapping and cheering.
This is not an exception either. Rael is within 5 feet of a hot woman at almost every single event.
A couple more fun facts about the angels. Their official greeting is not hello, but hellorgasm. They were once featured in Playboy, for which Rael gave Hugh Hefner the title of Honorary Raelian Guide, though Hugh never accepted. And they can choose either to have regular sexual relations with all Raelians, or to save themselves for the Elohim and their prophets. And a reminder, they only have one living prophet, who supposedly opposes the possession of women, whose doctrine rejects marriage as a way of possessing women. But he hasn't been entirely consistent on that. There's a girl who was raised in the religion. She does ballet. Rael meets her when he's about 55 and she's 15, and within a year they're married. Rael says this is only because it makes it easier to take her out of the country, but that's not better. About her relationship with Rael, she has this to say. I love to think of Rael as a racehorse. He's always on the go, always rushing. He loves to race, to travel. So I am like his little rabbit. The racehorse owners have found that the horse is happier if he has the same rabbit in his stable. So when the horse travels to different races, he always has the same little rabbit waiting for him in his stall at the end of the day. So I am like that little rabbit for Rael, waiting for him in his stall so that he is happy.
Let's go.
What's up?
I just got invited to a Raelian event.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, you've been trying to do
I
that.
told them we were joining, and now we got invited.
You told
to
them
their
what?
potluck.
No.
What?
You told them we were joining?
Yeah, I told them we were going to join.
Why would you say that?
Because they wouldn't respond to me otherwise.
No, I don't want to fucking join the Raelians, man. No. No, did you hear what we just talked about?
No, it'll be
It's haunting.
Look, it'll be cool. We'll make some food. We'll get some like spy cameras or something.
Spy cam? No, dude, we're not getting spy cameras. Are you out of your fucking mind?
But
Like they're normal people. They're not like a rail is weird, but it's not like a death cult.
okay, well, all right, well, like I told them we would join, so
Motherfucker,
we'll
man.
make some food and we'll go over there.
What are we even gonna make?
Hello.
It's potluck time.
Potluck time.
December 13th is the anniversary of Rael's first encounter with the Elohim. So this is like probably the most major holiday of the year for them.
And we're going for this one?
Yeah.
We're crashing a Christmas party.
We're not crashing, we were invited.
This meeting spot's also in the middle of Gary, Indiana, which if you know anything about anything is not ideal.
When it comes to popular, I know about popular, and with an assist from me to be who you'll be.
Yeah, so we just got back from the meeting. I officially am a member of the Raelian movement.
And we're so proud of you.
One of the requirements for joining the Raelians is you submit an act of apostasy where you sign a document essentially saying that you renounce whatever your previous faith was. The church isn't going to be too happy about that.
Yeah.
Like we expected, we went and met them,
And they're nice people.
and they're nice people.
Zero women there.
But yeah,
I don't think there's no women Raelians in Illinois. That's my bet. So it was 3 older guys, 1 guy maybe in his 30s, chill as hell. So they all went for the 50 years anniversary of Rael's first revelation last year in Japan. And we're just talking about like the women they met there. One of the guys was saying I have a young one on the line right now.
I assume he was joking, but maybe not.
I don't think so. Used to be Rael's bodyguard. And he was like surprised by it because saying like he's a 5'3" guy.
Yeah.
Like he's not gonna beat anyone up.
I am fully a foot taller than this man, and
Yeah.
he was protecting Rael with his life.
Yes, exactly. He's like, I would take a bullet for Rael and I think that's beautiful, but I don't think I'd stop anyone. Most of it was just like he'd be on guard duty outside the bathroom when Rael was using it, and Rael would come up and like whisper a joke in his ear. Here's the thing. We know the history better than these guys do. We were like downplaying how much we knew about it, and then they would tell us facts that we know are wrong. Just like basic facts about like when they lived in this country or when they lived in this, what Rael did after this. My first question for them was we were playing, kind of dumb, and I was like, yes, I'm a little confused on timeline. Did they clone someone? First they said, okay, it wasn't the Raelians who did it. It was someone kind of affiliated with the Raelians, that being Bridget Vasilier. And then they did clone a kid, but the parents wanted the kid to live privately, so they didn't want to reveal it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, which is basically their stance to this day. Yeah, there's probably a kid. Which you made the claim. You can't have a press conference where you say, yes, we cloned a child, and then a couple years later be like, well, there's probably a cloned kid.
There could be a kid.
Yeah.
What do you care? What?
Yeah, which is not, that's been done to death. There was
Yeah,
a
for
million
sure.
news articles about that, so it's not
Well,
that
SNL
surprising.
and everything.
Yeah, terrible SNL. bit.
Terrible SNL bit. We met a kid who wasn't a Raelian.
Yeah, but also lived with him.
We also lived with him, and he passed through and asked us if we were talking about what Leonardo DiCaprio in Transcendence.
Yeah.
And that was the one question he had for us. And
Yeah.
then he left for the weekend.
So cool.
So I was
Classic.
like, yeah, are you coming back this weekend? He's like, no. Go. All right.
I thought another thing I thought was very funny was that an older man,
Yeah.
probably 60s or something, and when you drive past his house, the front of his house has like a bunch of like Raelian posters on it, and inside there's a bunch of like Raelian shit all over the place. It was something where I walked in and I was immediately like, oh boy.
Yeah, for real. Because there's all these like arts and crafts posters that they've made for their talking points. They
Yeah.
had like the history of swastikas and
Yeah.
the Americas.
He had a bunch of like Raelian iconography, but he
Yeah.
also had like a map of Burkina Faso.
Right. And I kind of just expected it to be like, like those guys I met couch hopping and whatever.
Couch hopping?
Yeah, when I was couch surfing in Chicago,
Oh.
and I would like meet a guy at a train stop, and then I'd go back to his house, and it'd be like the most disorganized piece of shit place I've ever seen in my life. Just nothing makes any sense. Just clutter up to your eyeballs. They put like a Japanese divider between you and the kitchen, so their son who comes like eat their extra meals on wheels can't see you.
What the fuck?
And it falls over on you. The mattress is flipped upside down, and then you're on like the sticky turf part. He actually had a very nice house.
It was a very nice house. I would love to know what his job is. Presumably it is Raelian guide, in which case they must make good money.
In which case, I see a new grift.
I wonder if they'll excommunicate me after
From the
this video
Raelians?
comes out. Yeah.
I think we've been pretty nice to them in this video. I think this is the best press they can get from an outsider.
Probably, although we have been very critical of Rail too.
That's true.
We're
Yeah.
very nice to everyone who's a member. I just struck, and this doesn't surprise me too much, but the Raelians are so sweet. It's like you go to a friend's house who he doesn't have any other friends, and he just starts talking to you about like Warhammer 40k lore, and then you just join in. Like, imagine how happy that guy would be.
Yeah, they'd be so happy.
Exact same situation. The worst part, I think, of Raelianism is just how much they worship Rail. And I think that how negative we are about Rail will definitely like color everything else they think about the rest of the video.
Yeah.
So, because when we talk to them about Rail, everyone who's part of it, thinks he's a really cool guy.
I could accept that he's like consistently a nice guy. I can even accept that he's being honest about like he believes he had those 2 revelations a long time ago. I just think
the sex stuff is so blatant that
yeah. And
He's
also
not
the pushing
knowingly-
back the Elohim thing, driving the race cars and not building the fucking embassy is like a kind of beyond redemption. I definitely think it's a conscious grift at this point.
if it isn't, it mirrors that exactly.
It's either a grift or an exact coincidental merge to what a grifter would do.
Yeah. Good group of guys. I hope they start playing poker or something.
Ooh,
Maybe.
we did poker nights with them.
Maybe we do poker
They
nights
did
with
have
them.
those swag ass chains.
Yeah, it's a shame just what was on them.
Okay, yeah, let's play poker with them, and then they have to put their chains in the pot.
Yeah.
Maybe we leave with one of those.
Well, then we'd have to put our chains in the pot. Yeah. No, I'll win him back. Don't worry. No. No.
That's not good.
I'm putting that in. That's going in.
You have nothing to lose but your chains.
Colton is the first white slave. No, Colton's talking about wage slavery, which is different and still bad, just not as bad as
I'm more
regular
so
slavery.
talking about the legacy of Yakub. Now we're still enslaved to his.
I'm stopping here. And how bad are the Raelians really? Well, no worse than any other religion. Their theology is batshit. It's weird sci-fi era remake of traditional religion, but Their organizational philosophies are difficult to disagree with. Rank and file Raelians have a sensical and pleasant take on happiness, sexual freedom, and social liberation. They create and run advocacy organizations for these causes. Rael himself, not good. Not a fan, frankly, but what do you expect? It's what you get when you put any kind of religious organization under the sole control of a single personality. Kenneth Copeland, Sun Myung Moon, Billy Graham, Jim Jones, Jerry Falwell Jr. and Sr.
Oh, except for this guy. This guy's cool.
These guys claim to have answers about our human circumstance, but the question of consciousness is more interesting than what religions have to say about it. You were created this way, don't think about it. There's an anecdote about a physicist debating a creationist. As he's doing this, the creationist keeps trying to catch the physicist in traps, saying, well, you believe the universe is this old. You believe life came from this. And the physicist stops him at one point and says, I don't believe in anything. Because, he says, when you start to believe in something, you stop thinking about it. There's different philosophies in what religion is. Some thinkers, like Ligotti, will tell you that we created religion so we don't find out there's nothing behind consciousness. Others, like Emerson, will tell you we invented religion so we don't have to bear the responsibility for the great potential of consciousness. We don't know which one is true, but we need to have the intellectual honesty to consider the question.
That's fantastic!
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe to become one of Rael's angels. Join our Patreon and we'll send you straight to the Elohim.